Hi, this is Terry of Terry Johnson Creates, and I get a lot of questions on how you can cut multiple parts of a machine embroidery applique on your silhouette cameo when it has several pieces like this design does. This is a cute sailboat that I purchased from the Planet Applique. This is one of her newest designs, and you can buy these online at planetapplique.com. But as you can see, we have one, two, three parts of this applique. So we have to select all of the different pieces and take it into the Cameo. I'm going to show you this on the Floriani Total Control, which allows you to save your files in SVG format, which is actually the easiest. But I'm also going to show you how you can do it on a software that does not have that option. So the first thing we need to do is to isolate the placement portions or the color stops of our applique design. And right here over in the color sequence, I'm going to highlight this one and drag it out over here just to get it out of the way. I'm also going to do that, come down and do the right hand sail here and grab that placement stitch out of the way and come down a little bit in our color sequence to our left hand side. You can see that right there. Select that and drag it out of the way. Now I want to get rid of all the rest of it because for the purpose of cutting our fabric, I'm finished with this. I don't need all of this. So I'm simply going to delete it. Now those little dotted lines that you're going to see connecting everything are jump stitches, but not to worry. They're not going to be a problem for us in a few minutes. So I'm just bringing all of the parts of my design back together. Doesn't really matter. This is not the way it's going to be in your Cameo. And I'm going to say File, Save As, and I want to save as an SVG file. I'm going to scroll way down here to where it says Scalable Vector Graphic, and I've already done this before, so I'm going to call this Applique 2, so you'll know which one I've done, and I'm going to save it. Now, you're going to see, I want you to notice that there are different sizes of these different pieces of your applique, and it's really important that you note the sizes because you want to adjust as needed, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So I always write down the dimensions of the applique pieces when I'm doing this. I also work in millimeters. As you can see here, everything is in millimeters because I find that's a little more precise when we go to our silhouette. Again, all three pieces, I've noted the size of those. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my silhouette software and I'm going to open that SVG file. Now you have to go down here to the drop down menu because the Silhouette Studio format is the default, and I'm going to select SVG or Scalable Vector Graphics, and I'm going to open the one that I just created, which is this one right here. Now you can see it comes in as a single unit, all three pieces together, and I don't want that, so I'm going to say File, Object, Ungroup. Come down here and we're going to ungroup this file. So now you can see we're working with three separate pieces. Now, as I select each one of these pieces, and actually I think I'm going to go ahead and change colors of them so that you can see them a little bit better. We'll make the base of that sailboat, oh, I don't know, blue. Oops, got to select it first. And we'll make this one peach and this one, I don't know, gray. That's just so that you can see the parts a little bit easier. Now you'll notice that these dimensions here, if you wrote them down, are exactly the same as what you had in your Floriani software. I wrote it down here and it was 41.7 by 63.8, exactly the size. Now, for this project, I'm going to be working on a terry cloth bib. If I was doing an applique on flat fabric, just a tea towel or a t-shirt or something like that, I would make this the exact same size because I've worked a lot with Planet Applique. I know she does a nice job with her satin stitch and that it would catch because my fabric was the same size. But now, because I'm working on a terry cloth bib that has a nap or a pile to it, I need that applique piece to be just a little bit bigger to cover all of that pile because you lose a little bit of your fabric when it's going up and over the terry cloth. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and increase the dimensions on this. I'm going to take my width from 41.7 about 1 to, I'm just going to say a little more than 2 millimeters. So it was 41.7. So I'm going to take this one to 40, let's just make it 43. That's like 1.3. Lock aspect ratio and click apply. Now this took this one up like 1.3 and this one about 1.5, and now it's just a smidgen bigger so that it will cover over the terry cloth nap. And I'm going to do the same thing to all of these pieces. So we'll make this one like 42.8, about 1.5 millimeters. Apply. Same thing here. I'm going to make this one it's 91.2, we'll make it 92.7. So I've just added approximately 1.5 millimeter to each of these pieces and locked aspect ratio so that it would give me a little bit extra coverage over the terry cloth nap. Okay, so that's as easy as it gets. Oops, I forgot one important thing. If you go to your cut style window here, and you select these pieces, you're going to see that none of them have that red line around them that indicates that they're a cut file. If I tried to send this to my Silhouette, it would tell me there are no cut files on your workspace. So I'm going to select, with all of them selected, I'm going to say cut. You can see right here it says no cut, but I'm going to select cut. Now when I do that, I get dark red lines around each piece, which indicates that it's going to cut. And that's as easy as it gets. I'm going to separate these pieces and spread them out on my mat, and then I can put 3 pieces of fabric down that's backed with my stabilizer, or excuse me, my interfacing, and it will cut all of these applique pieces out for me. I would also save it so I didn't have to do it again the next time I wanted to do this sailboat, and I would put save, maybe save to library. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to call this, let's see, there you go, Planet Sailboat 4x4 Applique. I'm probably going to rename it. I'm going to call it Planet Applique Sailboat 2. And then down here, I'm going to say enlarged for terry cloth bib so that I'll know that it's just a little bit bigger when I go to do this the next time. So that's how I'm going to save it. And it will show up in my library here under my own designs. And then you'd be all ready to cut. Okay, so now what we're going to do is close out in the Floriani software. We're finished with that. I don't need to save that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this design, the same design we were working with in Brothers BES lettering. This does not allow us to save in SVG format, and so I'm going to show you the different options that you have when you have a software that doesn't have that capability. Over here on the left hand side we have our color sequence, and you can see that there's the placement stitch for the bottom of the boat. And one thing to note is it's important when you do this that you have the grid turned off. We are going to do a type of screen capture here, and if I have this grid turned on, that's going to get picked up when I do my capture. Now what I'm using, the accessory or application that I'm using, is a Microsoft application called the Snipping Tool. I've actually pinned this down here to my toolbar so I always have it accessible. But if you haven't done that, you want to do a search on your computer for Snipping Tool. If you have Windows 8, you can simply go here on your charms to the search and type in Snipping Tool, and there it will pop up. When I do that, I can right click. Now I have it pinned, but you can say pin to start, which is what I did so that it's there when I want to use it. All right, let's go back to my desktop, and here we are back at our software. So I have my Snipping Tool pinned down here, and I'm going to select this portion of the boat, and I'm going to right click. This is how it's isolated in BES lettering, and say hide all. You may find in your software that it's a little different, that how you isolate that placement stitch, but as long as you get to this point where that color stop is isolated and you can screen capture it. I'm going to select my Snipping Tool. Now I tell you one thing I am going to do here. We're going to have to trace this in the Silhouette software, and it tends to trace better if it's black instead of that kind of brown color. So I'm simply changing the color to black there. Now in my snipping tool, when I click on that, this is the window that pops up. I'm going to do a new snip, and I'm going to drag my cursor around the item that I want, which is the bottom of the boat, and it copies it to that magic clipboard on your computer so that it's ready to be pasted wherever you'd like it. So I'm going to go back to my Silhouette software. Let's open a new window. I'm going to close out my library because I don't want to see all that. I just want to see my screen here, my workspace. And I'm going to click in my workspace, right click, and paste. So there's my snip that I just created. Now you can see when it's selected that there's a lot of white space around it because that's actually all of the JPEG file. And if I were to go and try to cut this, it would only cut the outside of the snip that I took. So that's not going to work for us. Let me turn that off and say no cut. And what I want to do is trace that so that I can get a cut file. I'm going to go here to my trace window, select trace area. Actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better, excuse me. I'm going to drag my cursor around that portion of the boat, and you're going to see that a yellow line is where everything is that's going to cut. Now this is a very simple trace. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the high pass filter, which is the default in Silhouette Studio, and I'm going to take my threshold down here up to I don't know, maybe about 85, something like that, 82, and I'm going to say trace outer area. Now I have a nice clean trace, a nice clean cut file of the bottom of that boat. Now I'm going to go back and I want you to see what happens if I simply say trace. This is important, and this is how you avoid double lines. If I say trace, it's going to trace the inside, I'm going to zoom in again, and the outside of that line, and you actually have a double trace. So see, you have all of this going on in here that you don't want, and you also get a trace of the jump stitches that you don't want. So when we do this, it's important. Let me just zoom back out here. I mean, undo, undo. Undo is our friend. I did undo a little bit too many times, so we're going to redo. And I'm going to say trace outer edge. When I trace the outer edge, I can delete my original JPEG image, and I simply get a nice clean cut line that would be perfect for our applique. Now, unlike when we open an SVG file, this is not going to be the same size. I also have a little dot down here that is not part of what I want, so I'm going to say Object, Release Compound Path. It gets rid of that, and I'm going to delete that little guy right there. All right. Clean them up a bit. So now you can see it's 11.45 by 66.25. So unlike our SVG that came in at the exact same file, excuse me, same size as our applique file, we have to size this. So now I'm going to go up here to my scale window, which is the one that looks like a Tootsie Roll Pop. And I did write down the dimensions of this in the applique format is 91.2 by 15.7. So let's go ahead and add to this width. If it was 91.2, we'll make it 92.7, adding 1.5 millimeters, lock aspect ratio, and click apply. Oops, I did something wrong. Let's try this again. We're going to make this 92.7, lock aspect ratio, and apply. Okay, there we go. So now we're at 16, which is just a little bit taller than it was previously, and we are at 92.6. I don't know why it went from 7 to 6, but it did, and we've got the right size that we need for our applique. So now we would color these in and save them and do both of the sail pieces just like we did on the other one, and save that to our library so that we were ready to cut. Now, I'm not going to go through the rest of the other pieces because it's the same exact process, but you can see that you simply have to capture each piece, bring it in and size it, then save it so that it's ready to be cut to your Silhouette Cameo. Okay, so that's the end of this video, and the rest of the blog post is going to show you some pictures on how you can cut your files and stitch it out for machine embroidery.